Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're literally putting on our detective hats and taking a journey into the world's most notorious, yet totally unofficial patch of ocean. Yep, we're diving deep into the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Now, if you've spent any time online or watching documentaries, you already know the whispers, the folklore, the wild theories. But today, we aren't just telling ghost stories. Nope, we're mapping out the facts, the history, and the cold, hard data to demystify a legend that's captivated the world for centuries.
So, let's just dive right in and ask the big question up front. How exactly do 20 planes, 50 ships, and hundreds of people just vanish without a trace from an area that doesn't even officially exist on any government map, right? We're talking about a loosely defined, roughly million-square-mile region bounded roughly by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. To understand how this completely unmapped region has supposedly swallowed so many vessels, we've got to look at how this mystery was built over time.
All right, we need to set the scene of the crime, and to do that, we actually have to go back half a millennium. This isn't just a modern phenomenon, guys. Back in 1492, Christopher Columbus actually noted in his log that his compass was acting strangely in this area. He even described seeing a mysterious light on the horizon, like a small wax candle that rose and lifted up. Fast forward to 1881, and we get the legendary tale of the Ellen Austin encountering an abandoned, fully stocked ghost ship. Then, moving into the 20th century, the incidents become massive maritime disasters, specifically the tragedies of the USS Cyclops and Flight 19.
Now, the sheer unbelievable scale of this 1918 tragedy is absolutely staggering. The USS Cyclops was a massive 542-foot-long Navy ship. It was carrying over 300 men and a whopping 10,000 tons of manganese ore, the stuff used in steelmaking. It left Barbados heading north and simply ceased to exist. Poof! No wreckage was ever found, and what's really chilling, despite being fully equipped to do so, it never sent a single SOS distress call. To this day, it remains the largest non-combat loss of life in U.S. naval history.
This chilling quote from U.S. President Woodrow Wilson really perfectly captures how deeply baffling these early maritime disappearances felt to the whole world. Think about it. Before the era of modern tracking technology, GPS, and advanced radar, the ocean was this infinite, silent void. When a massive iron ship just vanished, the public consciousness was entirely shaken. And, well, it left this open void for the imagination to run completely wild.
And then, the mystery quickly escalated and quite literally took to the skies. In December 1945, 5 Navy torpedo bombers, infamously known as Flight 19, were out conducting a practice run. The lead pilot became severely lost. His compass was malfunctioning, and he radioed his final haunting words. "It looks like we are entering white water. We are completely lost." They ran out of fuel and ditched at sea. But the terror completely compounded when the 13-man rescue plane sent to find them also entirely vanished. The official Navy report actually declared that it was as if they had flown to Mars. Just a few years later, 2 British passenger planes disappeared in the exact same region, totally cementing the terror.
Okay, so we reach our narrative turning point right here. For centuries, you had all these isolated frantic dots: Columbus, ghost ships, lost bombers. But it wasn't until 1964 that an author named Vincent Gaddis finally connected them in an issue of Argosy magazine. He officially coined the deadly space the Bermuda Triangle. Gaddis drew the boundaries and created this masterpiece of conspiratorial fantasy that essentially broke the 1960s internet, kicking off an absolute frenzy of public speculation.
And this cultural hype absolutely exploded during the 1970s. We're talking selling over 20 million copies across 30 languages. Charles Berlitz published his book The Bermuda Triangle in 1974, and he held nothing back. Right in the middle of the Cold War era, he offered up these mind-blowing suggestions that the triangle was connected to the mythical lost city of Atlantis, hidden time portals under the sea, and, of course, extraterrestrial interference. His theories were so incredibly popular, they actually directly inspired director Steven Spielberg to depict the Flight 19 aircrew being abducted by aliens in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
So, the crucial point is this. Do we just let these intoxicating alien and time portal theories stand? I mean, it's undeniably thrilling to think that a patch of our heavily mapped planet somehow defies all scientific understanding. But we're here to demystify, so we are going to pivot right now to investigate the grounded, scientific reality of this region. Let's see if the ocean itself is actually the culprit.
Let's move over to the physical science and look at one of the prime navigational suspects that confused Columbus in 1492 and early pilots in the 1940s alike: magnetic declination. For a really long time, the Bermuda Triangle was rumored to be one of the few places on Earth where a compass behaves abnormally. But in reality, it's simply about the natural variation between true north and magnetic north.
This sharp contrast explains everything. True north is a static, fixed geographic pole. But your compass doesn't point there. Your compass needle is attracted by the Earth's magnetism, which points to the magnetic North Pole, a pole that is constantly shifting around. The difference between those 2 points changes depending on exactly where you are on the globe. If an inexperienced sailor or pilot relies solely on a compass without mathematically calculating that variation, they could easily and entirely accidentally steer themselves hundreds of miles off course.
Furthermore, there's this imaginary boundary called the agonic line. On this line, true north and magnetic north actually perfectly align, meaning there's zero magnetic declination. Historically, this invisible line passed right through the Bermuda Triangle, but scientists have carefully tracked it, and it naturally drifts westward at an average velocity of about 0.2 degrees per year. So today, that line actually sits way over in the Gulf of Mexico, thoroughly debunking compass malfunction as some localized modern hazard for the triangle. Now, if we investigate the actual environment of the region, we find an incredibly violent marine ecosystem. First, you've got the Gulf Stream traveling right along the western edge. It is incredibly swift, flowing up to 300 times faster than the Amazon River. That kind of current can throw sailors massively off course and instantly sweep away the wreckage of a disaster. Second, we have rogue waves. These aren't myths, guys. They are scientifically confirmed sheer walls of water reaching over 80 feet tall. Finally, massive underwater craters caused by explosive bursts of trapped methane gas have led some to theorize giant oceanic burps could actually swallow a ship, though to be fair, that one remains highly speculative.
Okay, so these natural hazards, the rogue waves, the massive currents, the shifting magnetic fields, they all sound entirely plausible and honestly quite terrifying. But pointing to geomagnetism or methane doesn't equate to irrefutable evidence. To truly crack this case, we have to look past the hypotheses. We need to bring in the cold, hard marine and aviation forensics. What does the global data actually say?
0.02%. This tiny number right here? It's the ultimate mic drop for the entire Bermuda Triangle myth. Let me show you exactly what it represents.
When we compare the data sourced directly from the global shipping publication Lloyd's List for the year 2021, the reality is just staggering. Globally, 1.8% of all vessels everywhere in the world experience some sort of casualty during their voyage. But in the Bermuda Triangle, out of the 8,634 boats that passed through that year, there were only 2 casualties. That's 0.02%. So according to this massive shipping data set, the danger of disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle is actually 90 times lower than the global average. Let that sink in.
In fact, if we zoom out to look at a full decade of shipping losses, the Bermuda Triangle doesn't even make the top 10 most dangerous waters. Regions around the South China Sea and the Philippines take the number 1 spot, followed closely by the East Mediterranean and the Black Sea. The Triangle isn't even statistically competitive when it comes to maritime danger.
And hey, if you still have doubts, let's look at an extensive 33-year marine data set spanning from 1982 all the way to 2015. Out of more than 150,000 marine casualty records globally, a mere 4% happened within the Triangle. And stunningly, despite literally centuries of folklore, absolutely 0 of those incidents were officially classified as mysterious disappearances. The incidents that did occur perfectly mirrored standard everyday worldwide patterns of marine accidents.
And the aviation forensics? They tell the exact same unremarkable story. When exploring the National Transportation Safety Board database, we see that almost all local incidents happen simply during takeoff or landing in the Bahamas. Since 1965, there has only been 1 mid-flight commercial incident over Bermuda, and actually, it was just a JetBlue flight that hit severe turbulence, resulting in 1 injury. Now, what about the infamous Flight 19? Well, the actual military transcripts prove that Lieutenant Taylor mistakenly thought he was over the Florida Keys. Instead of turning west towards safety, he unfortunately flew his team east, deeper into the Atlantic. So it wasn't aliens. It was a tragic human navigational error by a pilot who actually had a known history of getting lost. Let's look at one final staggering number. You might be wondering if these are all just standard human errors and weather events. Why is the wreckage from these historical tragedies so rarely found in this specific region? Well, the answer is 500.
Florida and the surrounding islands sit right in the crosshairs of brutal, unforgiving hurricane paths. Over 500 tropical and subtropical cyclones have impacted the state of Florida alone since 1851. Puerto Rico? It gets hit by hurricanes an average of 4 or 5 times a year. This extreme, rapidly changing weather, combined with the incredibly fast-moving waters of the Gulf Stream, means that the tragic evidence of downed ships and planes is quickly and very efficiently erased from the map.
Ultimately, what does the hard data show us today? It unequivocally proves this region is just a heavily trafficked, weather-beaten stretch of ocean. It is literally statistically safer to travel through the Bermuda Triangle than most other major global shipping routes. So far from a cursed vortex, the Triangle is simply the victim of human error, wild weather, and a whole lot of sensationalized storytelling. It is, mathematically speaking, fabulously unremarkable.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We just used data and history to completely dismantle a 500-year-old myth that fooled millions of people. It kind of leaves you wondering, if the Bermuda Triangle is simply a combination of sensationalized fiction and intense weather, what other beloved, famous cultural mysteries out there are just waiting for us to sit down, ignore the hype, and check the math? Keep learning, keep questioning, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.